Namaste friends, I'm Jayalakshmi Ravichandran signing in on behalf of Magic Needles. This day I'm here with Numeral 7 in Filet Crochet. The videos of basics of Filet Crochet and Chainless Foundation DCs are available as links in the description box below. To work this filet, we start with 20 solid squares or 60 or 61 DCs. Row number 2 and 3. This is the first row number 2 and 3. We have one solid square on either side with 18 open squares between them. And then the pattern begins with the fourth row, and fourth row and all subsequent even rows are read from left to right and worked. All odd number rows are read from right to left and worked. So let's begin the fourth row. One solid square, 8 open squares, 3 solid squares, 7 open squares and 1 solid square. Row number 5, read from right to left, 1 solid square, 6 open squares, 4 solid squares, the rest are open squares ending with a solid square. Row number 6, 1 solid square, 9 open squares, 2 solid squares, 7 open squares ending with a solid square. Row number 7, 1 solid square, 7 open squares, 2 solid squares, the rest are open squares ending with a solid square. Row number 8, 1 solid square, 10 open squares, 1 solid square, 7 open squares and 1 solid square. Row number 9, 1 solid square, 6 open squares, 2 solid squares, the rest are open squares and the last one is a solid square. Row number 10, 1 solid square, 10 open squares, 2 solid squares, 6 open squares and 1 solid square. Row number 11, 1 solid square, 5 open squares, 2 solid squares, the rest are open squares and the last one is a solid square. Row number 12, 1 solid square, 7 open squares, 2 solid squares, 2 open squares, 2 solid square, 5 open squares and a solid square. Row number 13, 1 solid square, 4 open squares, 2 solid squares, 2 open squares, 3 solid squares, the rest are open squares ending with a solid square. Row number 14, 1 solid square, 7 open squares, 3 solid squares, 2 open squares, 2 solid squares, 4 open squares and a solid square. Row number 15, 1 solid square, 4 open squares, 6 solid squares, the rest are open squares ending with a solid square. Row number 16, 1 solid square, 18 open squares and 1 solid square. Row number 17 are 20 solid squares or 61 DCs. Thank you friends for watching. Have a nice day.